Welcome to NarrativeNook where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
His belt also contained a clever mechanism. By touching a button on its side, he could quickly draw a small handgun that was capable of firing 4 bullets. That wasn't an original invention of theirs. At the end of the 19th century, military units from other nations had been taking such weapons onto the battlefield. But Arabella had improved the performance of these older models to create a safer secret weapon suited for their outfit, the Mafia Flame. His shoes were no less ingenious. Martha's goons had only thought to check under the insoles. But the crucial part was in the tiny metal buckle on the shoelaces. By pressing and holding this clasp for 2 seconds, it could be detached and thrown to the ground to create a thick smokescreen. It was one of their secret weapons, a smoke grenade. That's why, when their car was swarmed by Martha's lackeys, Horace wondered why Boss Bella was even considering surrender. With the arsenal they both carried, the odds of escaping were more than good. Later, as Boss Bella kept grilling the hag with questions and tipping Horace the wink, Horace started to realize Bella was setting a trap for Martha. But even though it was a trap, seeing Boss Bella being slapped still hurt him. His boss, who was worshipped by them as God, was tormented by this old crone. That's quite a lot of gimmicks. Martha snorted upon hearing this. Raising her gun, she fired into the air and bellowed, "Listen up, everyone. Catch them, tear off their skins and pull out their tendons. I want them to die so." She hadn't finished her sentence when bang! A shot from Arabella sent Martha's weapon flying. Arabella was a crack shot. As her last bullet was spent, she threw down her own gun and moved toward Martha with the grace of a swallow. Without her gun, Martha was forced to fight hand to hand. But it was clear, Martha was no match for Arabella. Arabella's skills were forged in countless battles, a far cry from Martha, who had only managed to secure a minor post in Doom. Arabella had the upper hand in all aspects, in moves, speed, and strength. Martha was sent stumbling back with Arabella's kick. Refusing to accept defeat, she glared at her. "Who the hell are you?" No average families could raise someone like her. Could she also be from some organization? If I'd known, I would have stripped you and that minion. Then she would not be snapped by the button from the minion's shirt, and Serena wouldn't have been dragged into such a mess. Even without my clothes on, your voice can still be recorded. And don't forget, my hairband also doubles as a camera. What? Martha stared incredulously at the inconspicuous hairband on Arabella's head. If one were to talk of its value, only the tiny diamond tiara counts, which didn't look pricey anyways, and it certainly looks not like a camera. You're bluffing? That can be a camera. Arabella pinched the tiny tiara, and what Martha just said echoed from within it. Serena, who hadn't ended the video call, widened her eyes in shock. She had seen in the news that how someone would disguise microcameras as screws, USB drives, lighters. But the tiara, no one can tell it was a camera at the first glance. She'd never imagined cameras could be masked as buttons and tiny crowns, yet look so convincing. What should she do now? Arabella and her underling both held incriminating evidence against her and Martha. If the evidence fell into the hands of the Collins family, she and Martha would be finished. Martha was definitely worried that this would pass into the Collins family, which would do no good for her and Serena. So, she reached out her hands and snatched for it. Arabella smacked Martha's cheek, and then quickly punched on her nose. Serena helplessly watched, as blood trickled from Martha's nose. She barely let out a scream when Arabella kicked Martha away into a pillar. Martha's back hit the pillar with a thud, and she then slid to the floor. But at the sight of the little tiara on Arabella's hairband, she shot a look to her henchmen, and in no time, 7 or 8 of them charged in. But Arabella wasn't even fazed by these goons. Within seconds, they were sprawled on the ground, defeated. She advanced toward Martha again. Serena again watched helplessly as Arabella kicked Martha in the head and chest. "Stop, Arabella, please stop." When Martha was smitten to the ground, coughing up blood, Serena's eyes welled up with tears. But Arabella didn't go soft. She kicked Martha away to the pillar again, like she was kicking off the trash. Once more Martha was hit to the pillar, and a fresh wave of blood spilled from her mouth. Still, as if unwilling to throw in the towel, she struggled to her feet, but only to receive another kick from Arabella on the face and stomach. She was knocked into the air, crashing into the wooden table, which was shattered into pieces. "Martha, get out of here!" Serena cried out, choked with tears. "Stop fighting, you can't beat her." Somewhere along the line, Steward's men had made it upstairs, firing at Martha's henchmen. Martha wiped the blood from her lips, still wanting to make one last stand. As she lunged for Arabella, and reached for her hairband. In a flash, Horace kicked one of Martha's thugs so hard that he flew into her, and they both went tumbling down the stairs. Serena widened her eyes, stunned, unable to believe what she was witnessing. Just now, Martha, who had doted on her for 18 years, had fallen down the stairs? Serena's eyes bugged out, her mind was blank. And it was after quite a while that she caught on Martha's death. Martha, who had cared for her for 18 years with genuine affection, was dead. "That bitch got off too easy dying like that." Coming from her ears was the mutter from one of Arabella's underlings. Serena couldn't believe it. Tears streamed down her face like pearls scattering from a snapped strand of necklace. Was it Arabella's people who killed Martha? Or was it Arabella herself? Arabella or her goons couldn't be seen from her angle. She only saw Martha trying to stand up, and trying to rush in a certain direction. Then someone flew in, knocking Martha down the stairs. It had to be Arabella. It had to be Arabella taking the opportunity to kill Martha. Serena was both tense and angry. A low sob escaped her throat, which then turned into a loud, anguished scream. "Arabella, you murderous fiend, you killed Martha. You vile, despicable woman." Ah, her Martha was dead. Dead. Horace, who was not far off, brought down a few more thugs and kicked the cell phone on the ground down the stairs. The screen was shattered. The video call was cut off automatically. What is she making a fuss about? Horace didn't pay any attention to the scream. But when he saw Steward leading a group upstairs, he felt a bit worried. "Boss Bella, why are they here? It looks like they're on the warpath." Steward and his crew stormed up. When Steward saw Arabella and her entourage still alive, both standing on the edge of the 18th floor, he was wild with joy. Their Miss Collins was still alive. She was alive and kicking. At the same time, Sean had been scouring the ground floor but found no trace of his little sister's body. Suddenly, two figures plummeted from above. One was a nobody, the other, to his surprise, was Martha. Why on earth was Martha here? He barely had time to ponder when a cell phone came hurtling down from the above. If he didn't dodge in time, he would receive a nasty blow to the head. Who's the jackass throwing stuff from up high? Looking for trouble? Despite the broken limbs of Martha, one could at least tell that it was a person who had fallen from above. But his little sister was nowhere to be seen. Just then, his phone began to ring. A call from Steward. "Sean, get up here. She's alive." Upon hearing this, Sean bolted upstairs. Horace, uncertain about the intentions of the newcomers, whether they were friends or foes, only saw Steward showing a gleam of predatory pleasure seeing Boss Bella. Were they here to take him and his boss? Even if we lowballed them for their island, they wouldn't chase us to the ends of the earth, would they? Horace sliced open the belly of one of Martha's goons and sent another assailant flying with a swift kick. He turned to Arabella. "Boss, have you noticed? The folks Sean's after and the ones we were seeking for seem to be the same. First Sam, now Viper. Could it be that they followed the Viper's trail from the club to here?" Horace floored two more attackers and cast a worried glance at Arabella. The Viper's been offed by Martha's people. If Sean didn't find him, he won't pin the blame on us, will he? Remember the underground fight club? We cost them Sam, and their man said that they would skin us alive. Should we make a run for it now? Before he finished talking, one of Martha's henchmen pressed a switch. In an instant, the Who building rang with relentless beeping. Horace had sharp eyes. He immediately spotted that timed bombs were placed throughout the floor at some point. Now there started a 1-minute countdown. Arabella saw it too. Retreat. Because the incomplete building had no elevators, descending from the 18th floor would take considerable time. At that time, Sean finally reached the 18th floor. Seeing his sister unscathed, his heart lightened with relief, yet his voice was still restrained. "You're alive." Arabella was perplexed. How eagerly was this person waiting for her to die? Horace also heard Sean's words. This man was sure enough gunning for them, wishing for their death. "Sean, they've triggered a bomb. There's only less than 50 seconds left, we need to move." If Martha's bombs went off, it would surely set off Steward's explosives rigged throughout the building. The ensuing devastation was conceivable. Sean quickly grabbed Arabella's hand. "Come with me." "What are you doing? Get your hands off Bella." Horace's kicked at him. Arabella took the chance to fight back, and Sean stepped backward. "I won't hurt you." "There's no time left. Move." Steward hadn't finished off the remaining goons and yelled, "Get out. Now." Time was ticking away. In that critical moment, Sean saw several bullets streaking towards Arabella's back from different directions. In a split second, he took a bullet in the back to shield Arabella, pushing her behind a pillar for cover. The bullet made his face contort in pain. As for the other bullets, some grazed his clothes and some embedded in the concrete, but luckily none found their mark on him. But the pain, from that single bullet that hit him, spread like wildfire through his flesh. Breathless from a daring sprint up 18 flights of stairs, and having weaved through several goons on his way, he now stood in front of his sister, taking a bullet meant for her. The impact tore through the stitches from his recent surgery, and blood slowly stained his white sweater. The spreading crimson bloom painted a grisly picture. Steward saw Sean was hurt and immediately, along with his men, took out the shooters lurking in the shadows. A few people with knives charged at them, only to be swiftly dealt with by Horace. Arabella stared at Sean with confusion. She did not understand why he had chosen to save her. If it wasn't for him catching the bullet for her, she would have been dead. What was he playing at? "Let's go." Sean's breath became heavy, his voice rough with pain as he grabbed his sister's wrist and started to rush down the stairs. Arabella noticed his back was soaked with blood. The bullet was still in his flesh. Horace took down a few more assailants and quickly followed in their steps. Steward, realizing they were running out of time, gave the order and motioned for all his men to leave. The clock of the bomb was ticking down. The closer to the explosion, the more piercing the ticking became. Sean, holding his sister's wrist, had just sprinted a dozen yards from the abandoned building when a deafening boom erupted. The building collapsed like a house of cards into rubble, with smoke billowing and flames reaching to the sky. The earth shook, the blast hurling them through the air for yards. To spare his sister from harm, Sean willingly chose to be a human cushion. So, when Arabella fell off, she didn't hit to the ground, but on Sean. The explosion rang out, sending rounds of shockwaves and piercing everyone's ears. Sean covered his sister's ears to protect her from the relentless blasts. Debris from the explosion flew towards them, and Sean reached out to deflect a piece of stone from hitting his sister. Arabella couldn't work out why he kept saving her time and time again. Once the shockwaves subsided, Horace scrambled up and ran towards Arabella. "Boss Bella, are you all right, boss?" He pulled Arabella to her feet, and then saw Sean pinned beneath Arabella, bloodied and pale, on the verge of passing out. Yet, there was a strange smile on his lips. What was with this guy? What was there to smile about? If Boss held him accountable for her landing on him, would they be in for more trouble later? Steward, seeing the explosions had lessened, quickly got up and rushed towards Sean. His men also got to their feet and followed Steward's lead. "Boss, we should get out of here. Sean's in bad shape, and I bet his men will soon start blaming us." They were already in hot water, and now it looked like more trouble was brewing. "If Martha's people back home find out about this and target your family." Seeing Steward and his men closing in, Horace spoke urgently, "We need to get the surveillance footage to your family. It's time to move." Bella couldn't understand the sudden shift in Sean's attitude toward her, but seeing him injured like that, she couldn't just stand by. She rolled up her sleeves, took a pill, and placed the pill directly into his mouth. "It's for your own good," Arabella said, standing up. She gave Sean a few concerned looks and, noticing Steward and his crew catching up to them, turned and walked away with Horace. "Miss Bella, what did you give to Sean?" "Wait a moment." The sound of Steward calling her Miss Bella made Arabella and Horace exchange a worried glance, both realizing that things were probably more serious than they had thought. They didn't slow down, but ran faster. When they were signing the deal for the island, Arabella had used Horace's name, so how did Stewart know her real name? Were they investigating her? And if they found out that she was Arabella, did that mean they had uncovered her identity back home? What did they want? Could they be planning to go after her family? Stewart, seeing her run, hastily ordered his men to give chase while he bent down beside Sean. "Hang in there, Sean, I'm getting you to the hospital." He wanted to help Sean up, but seeing him in blood, he hesitated, afraid of causing him more pain. As he lay on the ground, Sean's vision blurred in and out of focus. He saw his sister's retreating figure. The urge to call out her name gripped him, yet his voice failed to emerge. As if he had lost his soul, his head was spinning dizzily. When Sean threw himself to the ground, using his body as a cushion to protect his sister, his arms wrapped protectively around her. In doing so, his back and head had taken the full force of the fall. Now, blood was also trickling from the back of his head. As his sister moved further away, Sean noticed the injury on her arm. The bright red of her blood made his heart skip a beat. He opened his mouth to speak, but then darkness took over him. "Sean, Sean." Stewart panicked, calling for help. "They're definitely after us." Horace looked back and saw that Stewart's men were still hot on their heels. Luckily, he had called his people to come pick them up when they were escaping from the 18th floor. Suddenly, several black cars screeched to a halt in front of them. "Get in quick," Horace urged. "It's our ride." Arabella opened the car door and slid in. The car sped off and Horace, not yet inside, shouted, Hey, I'm not in yet." He grabbed the passenger side door and managed to squirm through the window as the car raced away. "Don't leave," Stewart's men shouted from behind, "come back with us." Sean wanted to see her, but she was already gone. They could only pull their guns out, aiming to shoot the tires to force the car to stop, but the vehicle was moving too fast. Damn, they're pulling guns. All this over a freaking island deal. Horace panted, his words punctuated by gasps of air. As he caught his breath, he noticed Arabella's left arm was injured, blood seeping out. "Boss Bella, you're injured." When did she get injured without him noticing? "It's nothing," Arabella brushed it off casually. Earlier, when Sean had yanked her down the stairs, bullets sliced the air around them. Her arm, entangled by Sean's grip, lacked its usual agility to evade, resulting in a bullet grazing her. Luckily, the bullet had not embedded itself in her flesh, as it had in Sean's back. That bullet was undoubtedly lodged deep, likely requiring surgical extraction. And as for the fall, it was Sean who had it rough. The harsh landing likely reopened the incision from his recent heart operation, which would require restitching. Fortunately, these were all well within the hospital doctor's expertise. Nothing they couldn't fix. "Boss Bella, we should swing by our safe house first. I'll have someone dress your wounds there." "No need, just hit the hotel. I've got a first aid kit on me." Arabella was prepared. She always carried an emergency medical kit whenever she went out. "Okay, then let me at least stop the bleeding for now." Horace fished through the car and found some gauze, efficiently wrapping it around Arabella's bleeding arm to stop the flow. They were often on assignments, so the car was usually stocked with medical supplies. But this time, they were down to nothing but bandages. The medicine had all been used up. "Just bear with me, we'll have you patched up in no time." After applying several layers of gauze, Horace made sure it was fastened securely. Throughout the process, Arabella remained silent and stoic, though her complexion was noticeably pale and weary. "Boss." Horace couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy seeing her like this, and it was well past 2 a.m. Arabella must be exhausted, and likely famished. "Hand over your jacket." When Arabella said this, Horace assumed she was chilly and quickly took his off, helping her put it on with care. But a moment later, something dawned on him, and he exclaimed in shock, "Boss Bella, are you covering up your wound so that Romeo won't see it and worry?" Arabella gave him a look that said, "If you've figured it out, why ask?" Horace zipped his lips, swallowing hard, and at the same time, he couldn't believe that Boss had changed. She actually showed a vulnerability now. Pulling up at the hotel entrance, Arabella gave her orders: take some trusted guys and head back to the States. From now on, you're my right-hand man. I'll head back with Romeo tonight or tomorrow. Head over to Jack's and wait for me. Horace considered asking if he could join them on their private jet, but then thought better of it. He didn't want to be the third wheel. Boss Bella, make sure you get that wound seen to as soon as you're up there. Don't wait, he urged instead. Sure. Arabella confirmed and headed into the hotel. Horace stayed until he saw her step into the elevator before driving off. With Romeo upstairs, Bella would be in safe hands. Reassured, he could feel a weight lift from his shoulders. Upon reaching her floor, Arabella found the presidential suite's door slightly open. Inside was chaos, a clear aftermath of turmoil, as if a storm had passed through. The hotel manager and several executives were awkwardly gathered near the sofa, incessantly bowing to Romeo and apologizing. We're terribly sorry, Mr. McMillian. This incident was a lapse in our security. Please accept our deepest apologies. Noticing Arabella, Romeo dismissed them and rushed to her side. Are you hurt? She gave a slight shake of her head and questioned, what happened? Some thugs forced their way in here, Romeo replied in a low voice. Seeing her paleness, he quickly fetched her a glass of water and urged her to drink, his eyes filled with displeasure as he glanced at the inept hotel staff. Why are you still there? He growled. The staff bowed again, expressing their gratitude for Romeo's understanding, then hastened to straighten up the furniture. But it was clear, the coffee table split into pieces, the windows and doors damaged, and bloodstains on both the bed and carpet. This suite was beyond staying in. The suite next door is all set. The door is open, and I'll arrange some late-night delicacies to be delivered. Before the manager could finish his words, Romeo shot him a stern glance that immediately cut him off. Knowing to exit swiftly, the man bowed out. An attempt on Romeo's life in their hotel. If the word got out, how would the hotel ever attract the high society? With such a security failure, who among the elite would trust to stay there? The thing was, the head honcho of the hotel had been practically drooling to ink a deal with Romeo. But after this security failure, that possibility was sinking fast. And to top it off, they might even need to make amends personally. The hotel manager knew better not to speak further, mindful not to provoke more criticism. Exiting, he hurried off to devise damage control plans and compensation strategies with the other executives. How's your hand? Arabella asked once the room was theirs. Did it hurt? Romeo played it cool. Nope, nothing. I saw it when you were handling the water earlier. Where are you hurt? Show me. Arabella retrieved her backpack, which was packed with all sorts of first aid supplies. You are quite the medic, aren't you? Can't get anything past you. Romeo pushed up his sleeve to expose a crudely bandaged forearm. That's some rough wrapping, Arabella teased. Couldn't put in a little more effort? Romeo had used some powder the manager had given him to stop the bleeding, then carelessly bandaged his arm, hoping Arabella wouldn't notice in case of a sudden return. But she had. Unwrapping his hastily done bondage, Arabella spotted that it was a knife wound. Thankfully, it was a shallow flesh wound. Were there many? Any tough ones? She probed as she started her treatment. Someone of Romeo's caliber wasn't easy to injure. Just hired guns. They had numbers on their side. They were after me? Arabella inferred. Romeo's gaze lingered on her, wondering what enemies she had made recently. When the intruders had slipped in under the cover of darkness, they likely hadn't expected to find Romeo there. They had hesitated at first, as if they looked to avoid an extra fight. But Romeo wasn't about to let them off the hook. After a scuffle, they were badly injured. He purposely allowed their escape, with his people to tail them. He intended to track them, revealing who they were, and who had sent them. We'll get to the bottom of this soon, Romeo hinted, then moved in closer unexpectedly. Arabella mistook it for an attempt at a kiss and focused on her work instead, pulling back slightly. Knock it off. Why do you smell like blood? And why are you wearing Horace's jacket? Romeo asked, sniffing closer. Indeed, there was a scent of blood. It's chilly out, so I've borrowed his jacket." Arabella maintained her composure as she concluded her task and stood up. "All done. Get some rest. I'm going to contact my people to arrange our trip back." "You're injured." Romeo instantly stepped in front of her. "Let me have a look." "I'm fine. I noticed when you were applying the medicine. Your left hand isn't as dexterous as the right one. Is your left injured?" Romeo's tone was filled with worries. Arabella tried to downplay it, but Romeo wouldn't have it and insisted on seeing for himself. Finally, he slipped off her jacket and discovered her left arm was also wrapped in a makeshift bandage, even more slipshod than his. Her clothes were drenched in blood that had clearly been seeping for some time. "So you are injured." Her wound was more serious than his. "Looks like we're even," Arabella remarked earnestly. "You kept secrets, I kept secrets." "Even? Nonsense, girl. I'm not here to score points. What were you up to tonight? You weren't the one hunting those guys, were you?" He recalled a phone call with Derek, where he'd heard that his girl had gotten the upper hand and was tailgating the assailant's car. "How could you have hurt yourself so badly?" Romeo's gaze was filled with concern as he said, "Sit down. I'll fetch the first aid kit." "No need for that." Arabella dismissed his offer, struggling with the knot one-handed. "Hold still, let me do that." Romeo, afraid that she might worsen the injury. If he had known she would get hurt, he would never have left her side to protect her to ensure her safety. He carefully peeled off the blood-soaked bandage, neatly trimmed the fabric around her wound, cleanly applied medicine, and then bandaged it anew. "With everything that's happening abroad, and the holidays around the corner, what if we head back?" Romeo suggested with his heart distressed. "I've got people looking into those hitmen from tonight. We should have answers soon. You've wrapped up all your affairs here in Belloria, right?" "Yeah, I've taken care of everything." "Then we are ready to leave." "Absolutely." Arabella had been thinking the same thing. She saw the clock striking 3 in the morning, which meant it was already 10 in the morning back home. "Can I use your phone?" Her mobile was gone, a casualty of Martha's actions and the ensuing explosion. Hearing that she didn't even have a phone, Romeo's heart hurt, and he quickly offered his phone. Arabella gained access with her Face ID. "Do you have my parents on WhatsApp?" Arabella asked. "Yes," Romeo replied, "it's in my contacts." Arabella noticed that he had saved Kenneth and Louisa as in-laws. "In-laws?" She looked at him with amusement. "In-laws? He was already that close to them? Well, they are my in-laws." He responded with pride. His private messages with them were also affectionately signed with a familial son-in-law. Arabella slid out a tiny chip from Hairbend and slotted it into the phone's port. She sent the surveillance footage to her parents along with a series of voice messages with instructions. After that, she used Romeo's phone to call Jack and instructed him to make sure everyone at Reflections Villa was well protected. Having settled these affairs, Romeo got in touch with his people, ordering them to have their private jet ready on a nearby airfield as quickly as possible. On the flight, Arabella briefed Romeo on Martha's true identity and her accidental fall. So she was the mastermind behind those past troubles? Romeo was surprised. "I have underestimated her." He hadn't expected that the incident at Dawnstar Restaurant, the falling billboard incident, the smear campaign against ARBL Clear Group's skincare line, and the lip-syncing allegations against Arabella were all Martha's work. Elsewhere, a private jet from Dawnstar was making its descent to the landing pad at Reflections Villa. Kenneth and Louisa had been eagerly awaiting this moment, standing by in anticipation. Eunice and Bard were expected to join them for the holiday celebrations, and they had arrived early to greet their guests. As the aircraft's door slowly opened, Eunice, looking chic and more tasteful than ever, descended the stairs arm in arm with Bard. It had been a while since they last saw each other, and her fashionable attire made her look even more stunning. Her walk was full of grace, and the blend of icy elegance and commanding presence was indescribably captivating. On the other side, Bard was the pinnacle of suave charm. Upon seeing them, Louisa couldn't help but wave energetically. "Bro, sis-in-law, you finally made it." She instantly became the joyful little sister in their midst, her joy bubbling over. "Louisa's been here early, waiting for you guys," Kenneth said with a warm smile as he approached and hugged Bard, then gave a nod towards Eunice with an expression of relief and happiness. "Seeing you standing here, safe and sound, it hits me right in the feels. Mom would be so pleased." Previously, after Eunice's fall from the cliff, everyone had thought she was gone for good. Even Bard had been despondent for some time. Now, with the couple before there, healthy and together, Louisa hugged Eunice tightly. "The important thing is you're back, you're back." Eunice responded with a beaming smile that only enhanced her elegance. "How have you been lately?" Eunice asked, her eyes tender as she looked at Louisa. "Everything's been pretty good, but let's not freeze out there. Let's go inside and talk." Louisa linked arms with Eunice and they headed towards the main house, shivering slightly as the cold wind nipped at her neck. "It's really chilly today. Oh, by the way, where are Mom and Dad?" Mentioning Darren and Belinda, Eunice's smile paused for a split second before brightening again. They were a bit shaken up before leaving the house. "Bard and I came ahead. We have something to announce in a little while." At the mention of an announcement, Louisa's curiosity was piqued. "Is it about Bella?" "Yes," Eunice nodded, her smile charming. Louisa thought it was about revealing Arabella's identity and said, "I've already called and invited friends and family. They'll all be here for the new year, but they don't know about Bella yet. I was thinking of making the announcement then. Do you think we should invite the press?" She wanted the world to know Arabella was her biological daughter, but was concerned that too much spotlight could disturb her normal life. After all, with Arabella's varied identities, having reporters constantly around the house would surely expose her comings and goings. "Let's discuss that after the announcement. Just prepare yourself for what I'm about to reveal," Eunice said teasingly. Louisa was puzzled, not quite grasping her sister-in-law's meaning. "What announcement?" "You'll find out soon enough." Eunice said no more, and led the way, with Kenneth and Bard following. Noticing only his sister, brother-in-law, and a handful of servants there to greet them, Bard asked, "Where's Bella? Why haven't I seen her yet?" "Bella's off handling some business in Belloria. She hasn't returned yet," Kenneth replied cheerfully. "This year, it looks like our whole family will finally get to enjoy a healthy and lively new year, and with Bella here, life couldn't be better." In the past, with Darren and Belinda's health issues, opportunities for them to gather like this were few and far between, not to mention having everyone together for New Year. Why didn't Mom and Dad come? Kenneth noticed their absence too and echoed the question. Weren't they all supposed to celebrate this new year together? "They'll catch a flight later, should be here by tomorrow," Bard said with a smile, then turned to his brother-in-law with concern. "How have you been?" "Can't be better." The two men exchanged a casual conversation. Walking hand in hand into the living room with Eunice, Louisa was greeted by Edith and the servants, who welcomed them warmly. As the servants served up dishes of pastries, fruit and hot tea, Eunice couldn't help but say, "Please everyone, don't be so busy treating us. Having you is such a rare treat, that Louisa wishes she could roll out the red carpet with all the best the house has to offer," Kenneth chuckled, then offered Eunice and Bard their cups of coffee. "Thanks a lot," Eunice said, taking the mug with a warm smile. The aroma of fresh coffee wafted up to her nose, and she could tell it was top-shelf stuff. She handed the mug to Louisa, just like old times. Anytime she had something good, she'd instinctively offer it to her sister first. Then she got herself another cup. After taking an elegant sip, Louisa smiled and asked, "How's the taste?" "Good," Eunice replied. "I saved these coffee beans just for you, knowing how you and Bard love a good brew," Louisa said. As she finished speaking, Kenneth chimed in with a cheery grin. "I can vouch for that. I wanted to make a cup yesterday, but she said we had to wait for you two to enjoy it together." Laughter filled the room, with Bard and Eunice joining in. Louisa giggled. "Coffee like this is best enjoyed in good company." "Absolutely, my dear. Whatever the wife says is the law," Kenneth joked, echoing his old habit of unconditional support for his wife, which drew more chuckles from everyone around. After a few more sips, Eunice set down her mug gracefully and asked, "Where's Serena? Still holed up next door?" "Yes. The mention of Serena erased the smile from Louisa's face, and her expression became a mix of disappointment and sorrow. "The reason Bard and I came by early was to show you guys something," Eunice said, putting her mug aside. She pulled out a small remote, a gadget her company had released a while back. With a click, it could project images, videos, even surveillance footage onto a flat wall or cabinet. Images of several receipts appeared, and Louisa looked puzzled. What did these mean? She couldn't make heads or tails of it. "Did you prepare a bunch of gifts for Serena for her trip to Dawnstar?" Eunice asked, turning to Louisa. Louisa nodded, her confusion growing. "Yes, didn't you get them?" On her way to the airport, she had Eric drop off these items at Martha's place, to be sold off gradually. "All the money went straight into her pocket," Eunice explained. Louisa and Kenneth's eyes widened. "What? Serena had done that?" "And the gifts she brought us," Eunice continued, looking at the projected images, "were bought in Dawnstar, charged to Martin's credit card." As she spoke, the wall displayed a series of extravagant expenses. She spared no expense using someone else's money, bags worth thousands, jewelry worth millions. She bought everything she fancied. These are the records of her shopping sprees in Dawnstar, and they match the so-called gifts she claimed to have brought us.
For listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.